Fellow tennis nerds, welcome to another episode of the Tennis Nerd Podcast. Today I'm here with a distinguished guest, Grisha, Gladiators Tennis. You've seen him maybe play with Medvedev, Rublev. He's playing on the UTR, on the ITF, and he also does racket reviews and other stuff on his YouTube channel. It's always great content, like really well edited. Do you do your own thumbnails, for example, if we start there?
Actually, my sister does the thumbnails for me, so yeah. But
They're very good.
doing
Very
my
good.
best to create some competition for you, Jonas, on the racket reviews, you know.
Yeah, you need that. No, there's a lot of competition. Like everyone is doing racket reviews these days. I think
Yeah.
it's which is good because it's for a while it was just pretty much me and then Tennis Warehouse and
Right.
not that much else. You need like other voices out there. I think it's important. So you're in Barcelona now. Like what's happening in the tennis world of Brescia?
In the tennis world of Grisha, I mean, not much competitive is going on. I am not planning to play in any ITFs anytime soon. I'm not signed into any futures, but I am gonna play a UTR as we just talked about it. I'm gonna play a UTR beginning of August. I think it starts on the 1st of August. See how that goes. I played my first UTR back in March, and I loved the format of the tournament. Also got to say I love the prize money of the tournament because unlike on the futures, you actually win something, and yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes, but definitely looking forward to it.
Do you think the UTR format is something that we'll see a lot more? Because they are really gaining some steam, and we mentioned it before we went on like recording mode, that it's like where, if there's money in it, it will be tough for ATP to compete, maybe.
Right. I mean, if there's money is one thing, obviously, right? But nobody plays futures for the money. People play futures for the ATP points and what gives them ranking and the chance to get into the higher league tournaments. And for now, UTR is not really offering any ATP points. But I feel like if in some kind of scenario ATP points are introduced, and well, ATP WTA, because there's also right the female tour, and WTA points are introduced into the UTR. I'm really struggling to understand how ITF would keep up with that, because obviously the prize money is way more tempting. The fact that you can play at least 5 matches per tournament is really good because you gain that experience. I told you that I've seen several players who went from playing decently well to playing really well and winning ATP points further on after just playing one UTR, because you end up playing with at least 5 players who play at that futures level, and you can maybe the first match doesn't go as planned or like goes pretty well, but then you end up getting the rhythm and starting to feel the ball better, and you understand that, okay, I'm actually playing at the level with these guys, so I guess my level is pretty good, and that gives you confidence, and confidence is everything in tennis. So yeah, UTR on that aspect is definitely great. Money, I didn't go too deep into the money side of things, even though that's probably the most important side of things, right? I know that Oracle has invested a lot of money. I think I read something like 20 million over 2 years or something like that. I've heard these numbers, and then also Novak had to do something with UTR. So but if it's only coming from just people sort of financing it, it's not gonna work too well. I also heard that the betting companies are kind of somehow paying for those matches to be displayed on their website. So if that can actually work out, UTR is gonna be a very successful thing. But if it doesn't, we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting that you can actually get the matches streamed. Like, I mean, you mentioned that in your video, and I think that's one great point, that you can follow the matches. You have great exposure. Sometimes you have futures. You have a score, but you don't know anything. Here you can get the accessibility, so you can also watch your favorite player, or like someone play a prize money tournament, and that creates a lot better accessibility. And I think it's also easier to sell it as a product then.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, like not only for me, as I said in the video, that it's easier that I don't have to edit the scoreboard into it and then record my own highlights, but also for your family, friends, for your coach as well, because I've actually had several players on tour coming up to me and being like, "What do you use to record your videos?" Like, because I want to record my match to show it to my coach, because I can't afford traveling with a coach. So like, let me know. With UTR, that problem is solved. They can literally watch you, play, and you don't have to be playing a challenger for them to see. And again, that's something really cool, and also for the highlights for your Instagram and stuff, it's definitely nice.
Yeah, it seems cool, and I hope you play more events so we can follow your journey there.
Yeah.
What's been your experience when playing ITF events like Future? So you did one video which was interesting where you had to eat a lot of McDonald's because there were no other, not any
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, but that was surprisingly that was the most successful future so far that I have played, because that was the only one where I actually passed the qualies. Got quite unlucky in the first round of main draw, getting a guy who was ex top 300, so he kind of wrecked me. But but well, it's kind of a no surprise to anyone at this point that ITF beginner futures pro tournaments are not the most pleasant thing to be playing, right? Because obviously hospitality is not included, no food, no transportation. You have to figure everything out by yourself, and as we said before, the prize money is yeah, something to be not something to be looking forward either, because playing qualifyings, you don't win anything, right? Like zero, and that's at least 4 days that you have to be staying in the tournament, right? Because you have to be there the day before the first match, because well, sign in, obviously now it's done by phone. You used to have to like actually sign. Now it's done by phone, but still you want to be there to kind of feel the court, feel the balls, feel the atmosphere. Then first, second, third round of qualifying, that's 4 days that you're not getting paid, and you have to pay for the hotel, for the food, and for stringing, right? And oh, even stringing gets really expensive, right? Because some people charge like 20 euros for what? Like 20 euros to string a racket? What are you talking about? But yeah, so that's 4 days that you have to be paying for your everything. And then if you get into the main draw, I think the prize money, I played like Sanchenko, right? For losing in the first round of main draw, I think I got like 200, say 50 euros, which is nothing, right? It's to string your racket 10 times, right? Like it doesn't cover anything. And unless you get into the like final of the tournament, where yes, you win, okay, 3K, right? 3,000 or like 2.5, 3,000 is a decent money to cover the expenses if you're traveling alone. If you're traveling with a coach, it already gets a little bit on the edge. But only one player wins the tournament, and there's what, like 64 players playing, right? So kind of complicated. But tennis is a sport for rich people, right? So also that's not a surprise to anyone. We'd obviously like it to not be the sport for rich people. Create some kind of way of making it more affordable to other players, because there are very many very talented players who just simply can't afford traveling, and and that's really sad to see. Often some players go really far to look for those places where nobody goes because they are too far, and then you all of a sudden you see someone playing like incredible tennis, and you're like, how is it possible that you're not in the top 100? And it's just because they can only play the tournament in their hometown, and that's it. They can't leave. So yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of tennis that it's such a travel heavy sport. Like partly, I mean,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, the stringing, people don't realize how much stringing is usually. Like you think stringing is for free. That's how I thought in the like many some years ago. Like, stringing is included by the tournament as a service, but it's not. Like the players have to pay, and sometimes it's like 25 euros. You mentioned 20 euros. And it's like if you string 6 rackets a day, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that you have to count into everything. And then food, obviously, sometimes you get food included, but the coach, for example, do you travel with a coach or you travel alone and you
No,
play?
no, I travel alone. I don't travel with a coach. Well,
Yeah.
only with my friends. I split the costs. I don't add.
Yeah, that's probably better. Like you need to find a way, like the coach has to pay half to join
Right.
you.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah. And yeah, nothing is ever included. Well, I mean, when there's a 25K plus hospitality, yes, hospitality is included for the main draw players. I think it is, but still, it's a pain in the ass to figure it out. For me,
yeah,
it's a little easier, right? Because tennis as a player is not my main source of income, so I can sort of stay afloat. But for everyone else, and guys at the age of, I don't know, I'm 22, right? When you're still financially dependent on your parents, it kind of also hits you hard. I'm 22, I'm still not making money, right? It's like, oh, and that's just really annoying about the world of tennis right now.
yeah, and you need to invest so much time and effort. Like it's not like a sport that you can play a few hours a week and then you'll expect to be good. You have to invest so much. Also, your parents, in most cases, and that's why you probably mentioned it's a rich sport. It's like it's very tough if you don't have a financial backing from some kind of sponsor or your parents in most cases. Like when you're
Right.
young, you need to have your parents paying for a lot of stuff without any, guarantee of return of investment.
Yeah.
Most likely none, you know.
Exactly, most likely none. That's the thing. I remember I went to a tournament in Rafa Nadal Academy, right? I don't know if you've ever been, but like, I mean, I know you have been. We've actually talked about it. Great academy, like the facilities, not the academy. The facilities are great. I've not been into the academy. Don't take my word for it. I don't know if it's good, but the facilities are incredible. And I was at the reception. I think I was waiting for my room, checking in, and I saw there's like a video of Rafa Nadal talking like on the TV, and he's like. Yeah, so and we have to give these kids the opportunity to have other sort of doors open, right? Not just tennis, because most of them are not going to make it as a player, right? And like he actually says it, and it's like, and it's kind of like everyone knows it, but like the fact that he says it, it's kind of like because everyone thinks that everyone is going to make it, but almost nobody's going to make it, right? Only 2 out of 100. So yeah, that's kind of a pain. And unlike in football, for example, right, where let's say that if there was a top 300 football player, that they're living the life, right? In terms of money, they're covered. Top 300 tennis player, maybe they're like at zero with their expenses and income. So yeah,
Yeah, you have to kind of weigh in taxes and stuff like that. So like boring stuff like that, you have to realize, okay, yeah, you get earnings, most likely you have to pay taxes on that, and then you have other expenses of just staying alive, right? So it's not that easy to just get
yeah,
everything. You're running a small business with not like a huge chance of success, I would say, in many cases.
exactly.
And you don't want to deter players from talented players from trying, because it's a fantastic sport and a great life probably, especially if you make it. But you need to know that it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I still think that you should totally keep playing if you're passionate, right? If that's your if you're sick with tennis, right? If it's in you, if you can't spend a day without playing, if you know this is your passion, forget everything anyone says about not playing. Absolutely go for it. If that's what you want to do, one way or another, you'll figure it out, right? Maybe not even becoming a professional tennis player, but you will figure it out somehow, right? So like, stopping because it's kind of hard to make money with tennis is something that would stop someone who doesn't love it enough.
That's true. That's true. What's your kind of role with tennis been? Like, do you feel you always been very strongly passionate about being a pro player, or it's been like up and down through the years?
I've been wanting to, obviously, like everyone's dream, becoming top one or winning Grand Slams. I've had all of that, right, back in the days. Uh, but it's sort of the problem is that when I turned 18, the ITF system changed. They introduced the ITF transition ranking, and basically, like, long story short, I wasn't able to play any ITF futures level tournaments, which meant I couldn't really compete, and I didn't really know what I was training for, right? So I was going to training every day, was practicing 5 hours per day, but I didn't understand why I was doing this, right? Like, okay, I can play national tournaments, so what now? Okay, I'm top 180 or whatever in Spain. That's already a good level, but like, what, like, I can't go any further, because to be any further, even in the national Spanish ranking, you already have to have ATP points, and I can't play any futures level tournaments because ITF system changed, right? And my ranking is worth nothing. So I got stuck in this sort of like situation where I didn't really know what to do. Then COVID came, so basically I lost like 3 years of my professional career as a tennis player, right? And it was like 19, 20, 21 years old, and those are sort of like the years where you gotta like push it the most and compete as much as you can. And yeah, by the time I'm 21 or 22, I go on court playing, almost as if this was the first time I'm playing a futures, right? And I don't have the experience, and I sort of have to start over again. And that's where I was kind of starting to see my dream sort of fading away a little bit. But now I started the YouTube channel, right? I started sort of recording my journey, and it sort of sparked me again. I'm back on track. I really want to, maybe not top one, obviously not top 10, because that's a little bit too much. But I definitely want to be back on tour and playing and competing and doing it professionally. So yeah, that's kind of how it's been.
You're very good at with the camera, extroverted guy, I would say. And so, how has the YouTube journey been for you? Like, was it an instant like this is something I can do? Because you've seen other players, like we have Felix Schmisker, he's doing some great stuff with YouTube with Tennis Brothers, and you have Simon Freund in Sweden. It's another pro player who's using YouTube as kind of a part income of his helping him fuel his tennis career.
Yeah.
For you, how has the journey with YouTube been?
I mean, it's been great. It definitely wasn't like the first time I'm like, ooh, this is my thing, right? Because I'm looking back at the videos that we did, when we just started. Oh my God, it's just so cringy and awkward to look back at them, right? I'm assuming in a year I'll be looking back at the videos I'm making now and I'll have the same reaction, but it wasn't like an instant thing. But the journey has been great, and even though we're not like exploding with subscribers, the fans and the audience that we currently have is just the best audience I can wish for, right? They're like the most supportive and loving people that I've ever met, even though I've never met them, right? All the comments and all the support really keeps me going. So it's definitely been way better than the actual tennis career, right? Because it's just better.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, you can share like losses, you can share vulnerability, while in tennis it's only the wins that counts. Like you get
Yeah.
nothing for even if you have like a great insight from a loss, or you can get some learnings. There's nothing to gain from it except your own, if in your own
Right.
head maybe.
Yeah. Definitely. And yeah, and YouTube has kind of, as I said, been the thing that kept me in tennis, because for me, like the financial aspect of things was just absolutely destroying me, right? Because I'm the kind of guy like I can't ask for money, right? I can't ask my parents like no. So it was really killing me. And YouTube kind of gave me like the base to sort of be kind of financially independent, kind of, right? I can now sort of afford to travel to a tournament myself, right? Not asking my parents for money, and that really helps. It also takes away the pressure from me, right? Because I remember going to Kazakhstan. I don't know if that was like 3 years ago or something, and it was a 15K, I think, or 25K, and it was just 1 week. And I came there for this 1 week. It was like a very expensive ticket there. Staying there wasn't that expensive, but the ticket back as well was expensive. Everything was just expensive. And and I remember going there, and I get on the court for the first time, right? Like the day before my match, and I understand that the surface is just way too quick, and there's no way I can get used to it within a day. And I'm like, okay, I'm fucked, right? Because like, and obviously I tried to get, and I lost in the first round of qualifying. I did my best, but I just wasn't used to the surface as much as I tried to. The guy also was, I think he was training in that club, so he was completely used to the surface. And I was like, oh my God, if I lose this, like my parents have spent this much money for on the travels, and I'm gonna lose in the first round of qualifying, winning nothing, absolutely, going back with a sad face. And that pressure sort of like left, right? Because now it's my money. If I lose it, I lose it. It was my choice. I don't care, right? Not that I don't care that if I lose, but I don't care if I lose that money by trying to do something, to win. So that's kind of how this is right now.
And also, I guess whatever happens in the match, you can use it to create some content. Like, and if you can reflect on it, you can help other players, or you just people
Absolutely.
that you're fans to watch, and
Yeah.
you want to be on the journey. Because, like, obviously, you don't have Djokovic doing like vlogs about his
Yeah.
life in a private jet. So
Right.
I think people can relate more about players who are struggling but who are trying and who are showing their passion and who are talking about what's the most common life on tour. It's not like you're not going to a tournament staying in 7-star hotels all the time. It's a different take on it,
Yeah.
which is more relatable, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also a lot of like, it was good news for me when I lost. I remember I lost the match, and I sort of analyzed the loss, and I did really get some useful tips for myself that I kind of felt like sharing, but I thought maybe people wouldn't really care, right? Because tennis is about winning, as you said. And then I did this video, and I shared like all those tips and sort of my feelings during the match, and what I think I could have done better, and sort of what people watching this video could do for their matches. And the reaction was like super positive, right? They were like, Grisha, thank you so much for the tips. It really helped. You're totally right. Or like a few weeks after the video has been published, they'd be like, oh my God, the tips you gave actually really helped. Thank you so much. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's, people want to see losses as well, and you know, it was also another positive regarding YouTube.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of players will go into maybe this journey. We'll see more and more content coming up.
Oh,
Hopefully
absolutely.
that can help players, but it can also we still need like the events. Like so you need the UTRs, you need the ITFs or whatever. UTS now, if you're looking at the Moratoglu stuff
Yeah,
that's happening.
yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts on the UTS, by the way? I think we briefly discussed it back in remember on the Adidas event?
Yeah, we did,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been in a few events for people listening, and no, it's always interesting to talk about tennis in general, also about content creation and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm in two minds. Like, I think sometimes it's too much, but I also think it's a great way of just using tennis as a vehicle to try to attract a bit different audience, you know? So it's in two minds. They go quite extreme, but I also think sometimes you have to go extreme to get, you know, get it out there.
Yeah.
So it's I kind of like it that it's trying something different. What's your feeling?
I'm totally for it. I love that they because I didn't know about UTS, right? And I had in my head, I was like, we need to change tennis somehow so that more people are watching. You know, more there's more audience, there's more entertainment. It's more of less of a gentleman tradition, whatever sport. Which is I love that, right? I love Wimbledon, for example. I love the tradition. I love the all white, whatever. It's cool, but we have to change certain things to attract more people, right? Because the guys who used to watch tennis are not watching tennis as much, and the new generations want more, right? And I had no idea about UTS, and then you told me, and I was like, yeah, we need to change maybe the format, maybe the scoring, maybe something. Like I didn't have an exact idea, but I had a sort of superficial idea, and you were like, well, UTS is kind of doing that, and they are, yeah, they are doing exactly what I thought we should be doing with tennis, and I'm really interested to see where it's going to take us, right? I actually even emailed them and I DM'd UTS. I was like, yo, guys, if you want some kind of collaboration, let me know because I'm really digging the concept. So I didn't get a reply, but you know, but still, it's definitely something I'm really into. I can see why people like the hard-on tennis fans wouldn't like it, right? Because tradition, tennis, 5 set matches, we want long. I get it, but then I also can see the sort of like the other side, which is like way bigger audience that can be attracted to our favorite sport and make it more popular. Therefore, more money in it. You know, better living for the beginner professional tennis players and stuff because if there's more money hopefully some of it also goes down to us the futures players, right? uh, and yeah, and you know it's sort of like with Porsche, right? When they used to only make 911s, they used to be like that sport car producing company, and that's it, right? And the fans were all for it. And then when they introduced the Cayenne, everyone was like, what is this, right? Like, what are you doing? You should be making sports cars. But then Cayenne was sort of like the car that got them to where they are right now and sort of saved them from absolutely going bankrupt, right? Because there's the hardcore fans, but they're a smaller group than most of the people watching tennis, you know, and most of the people watching tennis would like to see something different. I'm 100% sure. And then the hardcore fans, I guess they're still gonna get what they want because I'm sure it's not gonna get all wiped and replaced with something like UTS or like an alternative, right? They're still gonna be, you know, probably 5 set matches or something, at least in the final, right? That's how I would see it. Maybe changing something. So for example, in a Grand Slam, right, making the first round up until the final something different. I don't have a format yet, but something different, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. But then making the final a 5 set match, for example. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I think that sounds pretty solid. Like, I think people even like the 5 set matches when they were in the Masters. This is like some 20 years ago, but it used to have like you play Masters and the final is 5 sets. The rest is 3 sets.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's sort of, you know, finds that balance. It keeps everything kind of clean because, you know, you never also with the schedules, man. You never know when you can start a match. You know, you can never say, okay, guys, let's come together to this bar to watch a tennis match because there's going to be 300 rain delays, and then the match before it is going to be a 5 setter, and you're like, okay, I guess tomorrow, and then tomorrow, you know, is Monday.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think it's a good point, and I think there's space for different like flavors of tennis, right? So you have the hardcore. Sometimes I'm worried about like if you go, I go to some ATP 250s, for example, and the first days there's no one there, right? There's like very few. There's no way the money, you know, you're breaking even as a tournament from like round 1, 2, 3, qualies and so on. Very few people there. maybe that can be changed, but it just doesn't feel like a, an easy thing for people to go and like on a Tuesday to watch unless you're a super diehard tennis fan.
Yeah.
So, and also for the players, I think sometimes it's a bit crazy to have like people traveling a long distance to play one match, and if they lose, they're out. There's no second, like, I
Yeah.
would prefer a system where there's maybe like fewer players, but there's a round robin for the players. So you at least get 2 or 3 matches. So it's like, okay, there's a group stage, and then you get to the
Yeah.
end stage. Maybe just for the players to have, for example, if you're a huge fan of Musetti, and then you travel to Germany to watch Musetti, and he loses first round,
Yeah.
which is unlikely, but can happen. Then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I did all this for nothing. And
Yeah.
if you know that he's gonna play 3 matches, you can easier plan your trip. You know that you're gonna see him,
Exactly. Exactly.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something I like about UTRs, right? I can tell everyone when I'm gonna be done with a tournament, right? Because I leave to, I don't know, Kazakhstan, or I leave to Tbilisi, and they're like, when are you coming back? I don't know. Hopefully in a week, right? But I don't know, depending on when I lose. With UTRs, I know exactly that I'm gonna play at least 5 matches, right? So I know that at the least amount of days that I'm gonna stay there is say 5, right, or 6 or whatever, and that's also something nice.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I think it's a good point. I think that we need to be more open to changes in tennis. I think it's like keep the Grand Slams as they are. In my opinion, you don't need to touch them because that's like the pristine World Cup, whatever. But then the rest of the events you can do a little bit more tweaks with, and try and see what happens.
Yeah, I'd say maybe start with the lesser tournaments and then transition to the Grand Slams as well, because in the end of the day, Grand Slams, let's be honest, are the tournaments that are getting the most people watching, right? So if something is done, it should also kind of affect the other, like the Grand Slams as well. But definitely start with the lower tier tournaments like 250s or things like that.
Yeah, to challengers and stuff, and there's room
Yeah,
to
challengers.
improve. Yeah, for
100%.
example, like the next gen finals. I mean, that's an interesting format. They have play like 5 sets, up to 4,
Yeah.
and there's like I guess no ad and a few other things. There's
Yeah.
also
Well, that
automatic line calling.
yeah.
What do you think of that kind of format?
I think it's also cool, right? Because actually 5 sets to 4 games is a great format because it's kind of the dynamic stays there. The chance of a comeback is more unlikely than with a 6 game set, but it still can happen. But then the dynamic of sort of like this set stays there, right? Set finishes, okay, come on, I got the set, second starts, whatever. Like the dynamic of the sets stays, so it's still a lot of fun to watch, and you don't have to be 5 hours watching a 5 set match. And even though yes, right, the final between Alcaraz and Djokovic was an epic battle, but not every 5 setter is like that, right?
No,
If
no, I
you
think that's the trick. You get
Right.
the legendary matches. That's why I think the final is for sure good to have 5 sets, maybe
Yeah.
because also you don't want a final that's 6-3, 6-2, 6-love. It's not the
Yeah.
most exciting.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting format, and you people listening, it's interesting if you put your comments in the post and stuff because it's something that as a tennis community we need to be open to, maybe discuss and have ideas open and flying around.
Yeah, and
Uh,
also regarding the final, there's only 1 match played on the final
yeah,
day, right? Well, there can be the doubles, but still, it's not 13 matches played. It's just one, so you can kind of stretch it and be more flexible with it.
talking about 5 sets, did you watch any of Wimbledon? Are you watching a lot of tennis, or you don't have time to
I
keep up?
don't really have time to watch all the matches that I'd like to watch. I didn't even watch the entire final. Right, I did watch the entire final on the score, right? Because as I was editing, I'm like updating the score, but the actual match itself, I didn't watch all of it. But obviously I did look at the highlights afterwards. But that's it. Yeah, I didn't really have that much time this Wimbledon to watch the matches that I'd like to.
Who's your favorite player? Is it Novak, or do you have you've played with some impressive players in Dubai? We're gonna get to that as well.
Yeah, I don't really, I always say that I don't really have a favorite player, right? But because I got to meet Medvedev and Rublev and Sonego and Kasatkina and all these guys quite close, because it's simply like on a personal level, they became closer to me than any of the other players. I'm sort of like, if I had to pick, I'd probably say Medvedev or Rublev. But that's completely biased and just comes down to me meeting them. But that's it, and them being nice to me. But that's about it, right? It's not like an objective. That's why I love that player. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
no, but
definitely, yeah, Medvedev. It's been a lot of fun to interact with him, and it was fun. He's a nice, very open guy. Rublev is a very nice guy as well. A little bit more closed. He's sort of like maybe more focused on the training and kind of in himself, and doesn't really open that much to new people. He's very comfortable and awesome, and and jokes around with people who are sort of close to him, because I've seen him practice with Zverev, for example, right? I've been on the outside and I've seen him interact, and it's very different from how he would interact with me, right? uh, but with Medvedev, on the other hand, it's sort of say the same, right? He interacts with everyone the same way. He's open to everyone. He's joking around all the time, discussing things and stuff. So
yeah, he seems like a really fun guy. I met Rublev briefly, but I haven't met Medvedev, and he's one of my favorite players because also he's so unorthodox, and he solves problems in a way that you cannot even imagine. Like the way he can like move like an octopus, and then just he changes his stroke technique a little bit to adjust to the stroke,
yeah,
which is amazing. So playing with them, like hitting with them, who was the toughest ball to who's the toughest guy to practice with, like tennis wise?
it was definitely Andre, especially on my, like, when I was there, I was kind of like, I had the stress on me because I had to sort of perform well and do a good warm up or practice session for them, and when I have pressure, my forehand just flies away, right? Like I can't hit a single forehand properly, and playing forehand to forehand with Andre was just absolutely impossible, right? I did my best. I tried to put 3, 4, 5 balls in, but that was the most, right? Because it really, like, it looks explosive on TV, but then when you're on the other side of the net with him, it's even more explosive, right? Like you have to do the backswing has to be short. You have to be hitting in front every single time, otherwise the ball is going to fly anywhere but where you want it to go, right? And that was really tough. With Medvedev, it's tougher to play against him than to like sort of just practice, because every single ball that he plays goes really deep with like a lot of sort of strength, right? It's not as quick, but it's deep and kind of like, it gets on you. But if you just step back, 2 meters of where you usually stand, you can handle that rhythm, right? And it's sort of, you get used to it and it's fine. That's why like playing with him is more is would be very hard, because he would push you away, but then do like a short angle or like a drop shot or something, and it would just drive you crazy. But practicing was okay, because yeah, both backhand and forehand are very deep, very hard to play if you're like close to the line. But if you go a little back, you're good.
He puts a lot of like sometimes side spin on the ball. It looked like a quite heavy side spin on some shots that he
Yeah,
plays.
yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I wouldn't say I really felt it that much. Like I didn't really feel the effect of the side spin on my strokes. Like it was nothing special.
Yeah, but the Rublev shot, I can imagine like the way he hits especially the forehand is
Yeah,
just like, I
and
mean, he just won in Boston and was very impressive, just smacking the ball left, right.
absolutely, and many people think that Rublev hits flat, but he doesn't hit flat whatsoever, right? Like that's not a flat ball. It goes with a lot of spin. It's just not the spin that bounces like Rafa's. It's like a spin that, because of how fast the ball is going, kind of still bounces, but like it bounces into you and eats you up, kind of. That's the kind of spin that he applies.
Yeah, and his swing speed, I mean, it must be one of the highest on the tour. Like
Yeah,
on the forehand, he just holds the racket completely flat, but then you see the ball bounce. The way you're talking about it makes perfect sense because you see how the ball kicks off
yeah,
after it hits the ground. So it goes kind of flat towards you, but it's a heavy loaded ball.
yeah.
So it's like just kicks up. It must be horrible to
Yeah,
play
I like
against.
to think that my forehand kind of goes the same, because that's kind of what I aim for, and that's what I do. But obviously, it's not nearly as fast or precise or solid as his. And I
How is Sonigo to practice with? He hits a pretty big ball as well. Or?
Sonigo was awesome to practice with because it was a practice, right? It wasn't a warm up, so it was kind of more chill. We even played some points and fooled around a little bit on court. So it was cool. Holding his rhythm was also okay for me. Yeah, he would sometimes just go for a winner or a passing shot or whatever. No way to get to it. But just on a sort of a rally kind of level, it was totally fine. He wasn't smacking or destroying the ball. I'd even say that it was harder for me to handle Haddad Maia's ball, Beatrice. Man, because it was the first day that I came to Dubai and I practiced on the fastest court out of all of them, and she hits super flat. Like her backhand is super flat. Like, right, she's also lefty, so it was her really flat backhand to my forehand, and it was really hard to handle that.
Yeah, I can imagine that one. That's tough. And Kasatkina, how is she playing against? She seems to be very nice as a person
Oh yeah,
from what I've
Kasatkina,
seen on YouTube.
she's very nice. She's also very kind, very very funny to be around. She doesn't destroy the ball either, right? She gets to every ball. Very like her cardio is crazy. Doesn't get tired. But again, handling the rhythm wasn't really that big of a problem.
So, like hitting partner experience, Dubai, you really enjoyed it? Is something you want to do more in the future if you get
Yeah,
the chance?
absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Like I love that, right? I also got lucky with how my first experience as a hitting partner was because, I warmed up Rublev and Medvedev from round one up to the final, and it's because I kind of warmed up the finalist and the champion, and then I also got to celebrate the victory of Medvedev in the players' room together with his whole team and got to meet them and be a little bit more less tennis, more personal with them, and that's obviously something like absolutely crazy and something I'd wish for everyone to experience. But so yeah, like I loved it and I'd love to do it more and more. And also the feedback from the audience was incredible, right? It was the video with Medvedev was the best performing video by far on my entire channel. So I definitely like to do it more and more. The thing is, yeah, as you know, I told you that it's kind of hard to get into these tournaments as a hitting partner. That's why I asked you to maybe possibly get me into one. But as you know, it's not the easiest thing to do. But yeah, I'd love to do more and more and record the journey and show people how the inside of the tournaments is.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting content. No, I tried as well because I find it very difficult to understand how they select, like who is responsible to select hitting partners. Like if you go to guys who are tournament directors, they have nothing to do with it. And then it seems like it's a little bit like I know this guy who knows this guy who knows this guy who knows this guy. But I'm not 100% sure because my friend was hitting partner. He's been now in Gestad, and then he was hitting part. He was supposed to be hitting partner in Mallorca, but then due to some I don't know personal issue, I have no idea exactly what happened. But then he was like not selected in the last day. So he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm keen to hit this week with some ATP pros," and then in the last day they're like, "Oh no, we found another one," right? So
Yeah.
it seems like a tough thing. It seems I don't exactly know how the process is. It seems like they go really for the local players of the club if they can, and then I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what they usually do. I got lucky because I personally know a girl who personally knows the guy who was responsible for picking the hitting partners. So I got kind of lucky there. But now I'm sort of, my tactic sort of is to use like the social media aspect of things, right? I could be like sort of like a marketing thing for the tournament because the videos do get a lot of views and people are interested, and I'm sure that's kind of something that tournaments would be looking for, and that's kind of the thing that I use to sort of approach. But so far, um, no good responses.
You gotta keep pushing. No, talking about like the content side of things, like what I've noticed in my journey, I worked with like media and social media a bit before, but that's kind of like the person who buys the services. But in tennis, when I talk to other content creators, Ashley and Dylan and all these guys, and it seems like tennis is a bit behind when it comes to just working with partners and trying to, obviously making money on YouTube seems tougher on tennis. Getting views is tougher with tennis compared to some other sports. Is that your feeling as well, or is it like do you feel like it's very open and easy to kind of work with?
No, definitely not. And people seem to not. They seem to. I don't know. They don't feel the how YouTube could really improve on tennis, right? And how could help reach more people, and how collaborating all the time with all the possible influencers could help the sport. They just almost like don't see it, right? And you have to kind of explain it and chew it for them. And when you have to do that, it's already not the right vibe that should be happening, right? It should be kind of, it's obvious that if you collaborate with some kind of influencer who has a big following and they say good things about a tournament or about an event or whatever, it's gonna help your event or your tournament, right? But it's almost like they're like whatever, and on YouTube, yeah, it's definitely, you'd think it's a big niche, right? But it's not that big of a niche. Yeah, there's a lot of tennis fans, right? Like if you look at the following of Roger Federer or Nadal on Instagram, for example, it's millions, but not really, right? Like our channels, I mean, your channel has how many subscribers right now?
Like 46,000 maybe.
Yeah, 40, like say 50,000. My channel is reaching 30,000, and we work every day to improve it and create more new content and sort of find new things and stuff. And it's not going as it's not explosive, let's say, right? You go to a different niche, you go to, I don't know, car reviews or something. It's a huge niche, right? It's kind of specific, but it's huge, and you start a channel, you blow up, right? If you do the right content, but I put a lot of effort into making my content really high quality, right? Getting the right gear, doing the right editing, sort of to make it look good, microphones and stuff. And it's like, I would say, right? Like if I had to judge myself, it's a decently high level of quality of
It
content,
is.
right? But it's not getting nearly the attention that I would like it to be getting, because tennis is just not that big of a niche, turns out.
Yeah, no, I do struggle sometimes to understand exactly how that works. I mean, I talked to some other guys about the same thing, and that they, one take from Ian Westerman like was that, oh, you just need to create good videos. But I feel, but he also pointed out, which I think is correct, is that the tennis niche, like the whole niche of tennis, whether it's coaching content or the, more tournament style content. Because I think like if you, for example, do a tournament vlog where you are behind the scenes, that would be interesting also for people that are not so into tennis.
Yeah,
That would be interesting. I understand that if you review a racket, it's not, it's very
yeah,
nerdy. It's going to be for a
of
select
course.
audience. But when you do like more vlog styles or even podcasts and stuff, it should be reaching a bit of a wider audience. But it's very tough in tennis. It's also been
Yeah,
my experience. Like if I have friends that do other channels,
right.
and I'm sure you do too. And then in other niches, it's much, if you do like put in a lot of effort, you usually get rewarded for it. But in tennis, it's
Yeah,
much tougher.
yeah. And but then again, if you look at like tennis TV, right, for example, or like those guys, they do have a big following on YouTube. Like it comes down to millions. Even tennis brothers, like, right, Felix, but he blew up, right, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about it, and I was like, so how was that? He was like, I don't understand. It just happened, right? And it happened, and all of a sudden it just went blowing up. So I guess there is also people looking for that kind of content, right? Looking for
Mm.
new tennis content, but they're just not seeing it, right? Because you'd think, he has right now, I think 150K, around that, maybe more now, and it went just like in the last year or two, or maybe, right? It went just
Yeah.
phew. So there's people wanting more tennis content, but they just don't. Maybe the YouTube algorithm is kind of lacking to sort of give it to them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting with the algorithm. Sometimes, you put it's tough. You put like a lot of effort into content and it doesn't get anything, and then you put less effort, and sometimes it just like
Yeah.
goes really well. You don't understand. Like you put in the fewest amount of hours with one piece of content. You thought like it's just something to keep for this week,
Right.
and then it's like, oh yeah, that was the very good video. So
Yeah.
it's hard to understand exactly what works and doesn't work. But I mean, I guess in your case, would you like to do other types of content, or keep hammering, because obviously there's always a chance that it blows up in a month or in 2 months or in 6 months. So
Yeah, no, I definitely know that the content from professional like ATP tournaments works well. So I would really like to go to that direction, but I just don't have the terms to do it, right? Like I don't have the tools to get to there. I will definitely keep hammering that direction for sure, and then the on tour sort of journey I will do as well, because I mean I'm gonna keep playing tennis, I'm gonna keep competing, so why not as well, share with the audience. And then racket reviews, I just feel like people want to see racket reviews, even though as you said, it's a smaller niche and there's like way less people who look for racket reviews. I still want to sort of please them as well.
yeah, no, but I think it makes sense. I think it also makes sense. I mean, tennis is a relatively small niche anyway, so you want to
Right.
do different content. You don't
Yeah,
want to do just like one type of
absolutely.
content.
But I'm still totally open to making new content, right? I'm down. It's just that, it takes time and effort to come up with new ideas while you're still working on the other ones, right?
Yeah, yeah. Editing is a very time consuming
Oof.
job, and if you just to hire an editor would also be good, but it's also costly, and you don't always get the results that you want, especially
Yeah.
when you've been doing your own content.
Right.
What's been your thinking around that? Would you ever want to hire someone
I
for that?
would probably want to hire someone, but way further on, because I like to edit the videos the way I edit them. And even though, like it can take hours to edit a video, right? Like a 20-minute video can take 20 hours to edit, like no joke, right? Absolutely. And but still, I kind of want to get my message across the way I want it to be, seen across. And the only way to do it is to edit my own videos. Further on, when the channel grows, when Gladiators Tennis grows just as a brand, I'm planning to hire maybe not one, maybe several people just working on sort of different perspectives and trying to figure out the right way to serve it to the audience so that it's not just one person's, opinion and view on the topic and that's how they show it. But that's further on. For now, I'm just going to focus on, while I still kind of have time, even though like my schedule has become quite a bit more busy, I still have time to edit. So I'm just going to, for now, I'll stick to that.
When you started Gladiators, you were two guys. Arek was with you.
We were five.
And then you were five. Okay, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, we were five. It was me, Areg, Turkish guy Kuzey, Spanish guy
he was
Alvaro,
right?
and another Russian guy Nikita. We were five, and you can see all of them spread it across some of the videos, especially in the early stages. But then they just didn't feel like and didn't want to keep going. Alvaro and Kuzey, they just sort of fell off. Nikita left to the US, so it's kind of hard to do anything. And then Areg and I, we stuck together for some time, and I think for like a year we've been doing content together. But then there was a conflict, and we separated. I kept on with YouTube, he kept on with his tennis.
Yeah. I mean, is it much tougher to do it alone? Like, do you miss some of that kind of group team effort?
I've always thought of myself as a team player. Right? Like I always like to have people around me working together as a team, doing the job together, spreading the efforts. But unfortunately, in real life, the way it really works is there's one guy or girl who is pushing it and who really believes in it and does most of the job. And then other people are kind of around it. Yes, they do help sometimes, right? But let's just say that the percentage is like 80, you do everything, and then 80% you do, and the 20% is sort of split between the other members of the team. That's kind of how my experience has been with this project and with everything else. So when we did split with Areg, I felt, well, we stopped talking, right? So like we stopped being friends, sort of. That's the main concern. But in terms of just the project itself, obviously he was, like a big image, everyone liked him, he's charismatic, whatever. So that was kind of, I was, sort of hesitant about it. But in terms of just the workload itself, I didn't really feel a difference, because I was already doing it all myself, right? Like I was doing the editing myself. All of the gear was mine. Whenever we needed to buy a new camera, I was the one responsible for it because I knew the tech sort of world, filming, recording, editing, ideas. Some of them came from Areg, but then some of them came from me as well. So it wasn't really that hard of a switch in terms of just physical workload.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, I know. I noticed that as well. I guess when you do, it's tough to. It's nice to collaborate, but it's tough to find someone who has the same maybe drive and ambition to do projects, and it's hard to find that like the balance where you share 50-50. It always seems to become like someone
never
works
50-50.
more.
It's just never 50-50. Whoever's idea it was, usually is the one who's pushing it, and if that person is out, the project is gone, because yes, we are a team, yes, we're working on this together, but no. And yes, we're friends, so I'm not going to tell you, yo, get your shit together, start working, like why am I doing all of this, right? I'm not going to do it because we are friends and I kind of can do it, I can handle it, and it's okay. And honestly, I'd be fine doing most of the work together, doing most of the work myself, let's say, right? And even if we're sharing, like, right, all the revenue 50-50, if you're doing less than me, it's okay, because I know that's how it works, it's fine. But when it gets to a point where, I'm doing most of the stuff, but I'm getting shit for something, that's when I'm kind of like, But yeah, and there have been speculations of our split coming down to money and financial side of things. Because people think that a YouTube channel with like 20,000 subscribers is actually making some kind of money, but no, it's not, guys. In case you're wondering, 20K is pretty much nothing. I could share my YouTube revenue with you, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think people think that. I got a comment on the video I did I think my latest podcast, and it's like, oh, there's ads all the time. How much money do you want, really? I'm like, I don't set the ads, first of all. Like you click everything because you think it's going to be balanced, because there's AI to figure out how much ads before the retention gets hurt by the ads. I mean, that's how smart YouTube should be, at least.
Yeah.
And also like the money you get from a YouTube channel where you put in like, so much time, is not that much. Like you need that. I think you need that blow up effect, like where you actually
Yeah.
get to a level of 100K, 200K, where the money starts to make a difference for you. I mean, it's better to have some money than no money at all, but it's not a money machine. Like I
Yeah.
think people think that, oh, but you have 50K or 30K or whatever, so you're kind of rolling in dough. Like, give me money for my Porsche.
Oh
It's
no,
not like that.
really not. So yeah, to the question of that person who asked you how much money do you really want? Some, right? Like, yeah, obviously we you can choose to include ads or not to include ads.
Yeah.
And if you don't include ads, you just don't make any money, right? So we include the ads that we can include, all of the possible ones. So sorry guys, but like that's kind of how we make a living.
Yeah, that's the reality of everything. Have you've worked with some sponsors? How do you find that process of working like with integration of some sponsor from outside?
Yeah, I've done several collaborations and integrations with different brands. I mean, my long-term sort of ongoing partner is Tennis Warehouse Europe, and Tennis Warehouse. And oh my God, like everyone from Tennis Warehouse, right? They're incredible people. I love all of them. And as a company, I just a lot of thanks to them for sort of helping me with the reviews as well. Sending rackets and all that stuff, and also the affiliate thing that I have going on with them really helps. So yeah, Tennis Warehouse is just mwah. And then yeah, I've done several just other brands. For example, lately, maybe you've seen on the Rublev video, I did an integration with Fantium.
Yep.
I also did a separate video on Fantium. Also another company that I'm like, I really love the idea. They're still struggling to make it work perfectly and fluently, and I'd like to help them figure it out because like the actual idea is awesome, right? Because coming down to beginner futures players who don't have the money to travel and to compete and to train, they help them, right? If you're talented, you have the chance, you can get the sponsorship and stuff. So that's really nice, and I really dig that idea. And then just sort of like investing like on a stock market into tennis players is kind of a cool idea as well. So I'm into that, and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a fun part. Sometimes I find like it's tough to sometimes make space when you're editing a video. I usually sometimes like, oh yeah, I should maybe include I have a sponsor for this one, and it becomes like and you want to give them the proper, because they're investing in your channel even if it's a smaller sum or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's like you want to give them some love, but it's sometimes it's something you kind of forget in the process. It's what I've noticed at least.
I don't
It,
have
it,
as many sponsors reaching out.
No, me neither actually, honestly. But it's like I know some guys are, for example, my friend Ashley from Tennis Mentor. He seems quite good at getting partnerships and stuff. Maybe it's easier in the UK. I'm not like I don't have sponsors like calling me and knocking on my door like I want to be in your video. It's not really that frequent.
Yeah.
I've said no to some in the past because it's not been relevant. But otherwise, it's not going to be like you
Yeah.
get calls every day.
Right. Yeah. I get it. Same here.
You're in Barcelona now. But you were born in where are you born? Kaliningrad or?
Yes, I was born in Kaliningrad. I don't think anyone knows where that is, but it's part of Russia. It's not connected to the rest of Russia. It's a small little city surrounded by European countries around it, in the middle of Europe. Yeah, that's where I was
Yeah.
born. And then at the age of 10, I came to Barcelona, and yeah, to play tennis. And
And you've been there now for like 12 years then.
yeah, 12 years, correct. Yeah, this is like 13th year in Spain.
And how does Spain feel? Like I know it's pretty great for tennis, but how do you like life in Barcelona?
I mean, the city is great. The weather is awesome. Well, now it's a little bit too hot, but just Barcelona itself, I love the city. I love the lifestyle that I have here. It's great. For tennis, it's a good place in terms of courts and facilities. Not so much in terms of academies lately, and not so much in terms of coaches. Things kind of have been getting worse because academies used to be way more pro tennis focused than now. Now they're more money focused and business kind of concepts. So yeah, in terms of tennis, it's kind of been worse lately. But still, it's better than training in Russia, obviously, because the weather is a little bit better here for practicing. You can play outdoors the entire year. In Russia, you can only play outdoors during summer. So
It's like Sweden, yeah. It's same for me. Like I play on clay now when I'm in Sweden, but then otherwise it's just no chance, right? It's like it's gonna be too cold. So
yeah,
you're playing only indoors, and that affects your tennis, of course, because you
absolutely.
become like an
Yeah,
indoor
yeah,
tennis player.
definitely. because outdoor
Which,
play is probably the worst surface you can encounter, and then indoor hard court is probably the best. So if you keep, for me, if you keep practicing indoor hard and then you have to play an outdoor clay tournament, good luck.
how has your transition be to kind of go, because you're an indoor style player, I mean, you're quite aggressive player, to learn how to play on clay? Because in Barcelona, I guess you play mostly on clay.
Yeah, you do. Now that I don't have a fixed coach, I play more on hard court, but yeah, the usual thing is to practice on clay. And every single coach that I've had, not every single coach, but most of the coaches, especially in Spain, have tried to change my tactic and my perception of tennis into a more defensive one because I have the good physical sort of capabilities. I'm very, I have good cardio, good legs, good, so just physically, I'm well built for tennis and for. I can play a more defensive game, but I never wanted to play a defensive game. Everyone wanted me to play topspin in the back of the, almost next to the fence, reaching to every ball and waiting for the mistake of the other player. But I never wanted to play that game. I just kept, sort of being aggressive, attacking, and, you know. But it's not been easy in terms of just people thinking that there's only one way to play tennis.
Yeah, you find it interesting. I sometimes talk to people around the tour, like, and there's some coaches with very firm ideas. I talked to Apostolos Tsitsipas about this recently quite a lot. Like, how he felt like in today's game, you need to finish the point in 4 or 5 shots, kind of. That's the tennis that we'll see more in the future, because you can't keep grinding. Probably because of the body, maybe as well, right? Like, it's something we talked about quite a lot. But it's like, it's also interesting because you say you got so much influence from coaches,
Yeah.
but you still stay true to your tennis soul,
Yeah.
whether you want to call it that.
Absolutely. But then what are his thoughts on the one-handed backhand in the modern game of tennis, right? Like, hello. But yeah, I do agree with what you just said. It's finding a balance again of, coach's advice, just physics, and what you feel like doing. And that's how you find the perfect game style and the perfect game that you will enjoy playing. And obviously, I'm sitting here giving advice right now. I'm not, top 10, but I'm certain that this is the way to go. If it's like Medvedev sort of is one side of things where it's like, I just do whatever the fuck I want, right? I feel like playing like that. I feel like nobody has ever changed his technique ever because he just wouldn't allow, because, just talking to him and sort of, understanding what kind of person he is, I'm sure nobody could even remotely close try to change his technique. So he just played the way he felt like, and it worked, right? And then there's players like, I don't know, say Dimitrov, right? Where almost Federer kind of like copying sort of scenario. And
Maybe Fed.
I guess it's finding like a middle ground where you're kind of like an Alcaraz.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting that with styles, because I think if you have something ingrained in you, you need to kind of cultivate that. Like have an emotion that connected to something. That's also what makes it fun. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you maybe started to play tennis, because you
Absolutely.
want to play.
100%.
And if someone changes that, you then suddenly you're not yourself on the court. I mean, it might win you more points in maybe short term, or even I don't know, long term. But not everyone can be a defensive player, because I mean, there's obviously stats saying that defensive tennis wins more matches, because people will make mistakes in tennis. That's a game of mistakes. So if you play more defensively, but then if everyone played the same way, what would tennis be?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but defensive game is really boring. I can't handle it. Like, I'm sorry, tennis fans, but I just can't play against defensive players, and I don't like watching defensive players. Like, Manarino, man. Like, what is this guy doing, right? Like, come on. I totally respect the guy for being where he is and reaching the level of tennis that he managed to reach in terms of, ranking and titles and whatever. But, oh my God, I cannot watch this guy play.
I think you're maybe not alone. I find it interesting because of the string tension and that he managed to manipulate the ball. But I think it also creates like people get, defensive game style can really get into people's heads, right? So it's like if you have the mindset for it and the appetite.
Yeah.
I'm more like I'm feeling more personally like you. I like to play aggressive. I also like watching guys like Fed or people who play very aggressively. And then you see a guy like Dimitrov, for example, who seems to be more kind of, he's in two minds of who he is on the tennis court. He's the most elegant player, and probably he's like, oh, I have the most attractive strokes in many ways. But he maybe not found a way to marry that with his style or with his like playing more aggressive.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
it's an interesting take. You mentioned also briefly that the one-handed backhand. What's the place for that in modern tennis? I've been in recent conversation. I mean, I've been in recent discussions about that as well, and I'm feeling like the one-handed backhand is starting to become a huge liability.
Yeah.
For most players, you know.
Yeah, because the more topspin becomes a thing, the less effective is the one-handed backhand, right? Because whenever I'm playing a one-handed backhand player, I know this is what I'm going for, 100%. You know, 1 out of 10 times I regret that decision. 1 out of 10, and 9 out of 10, this is the way to go, right? Because it's especially on clay, man. Clay, you know, if you have a decently top spinny kick serve or forehand or even backhand, you know, it gets complicated over here. Obviously, there's people who manage to do it incredibly well. Wawrinka, right? Like, you know, got to give props to this guy. Federer kind of is not bad team, whatever. You know, they're at the top because they're for a reason, right? You can't be top 10 and have a good forehand and a complete hole on your backhand. Obviously, you're gonna be doing certain things, but if you look at the ranking of tennis players, most of them are two-handers, right?
Yeah. No, and we saw an interesting match. We both watched Alcaraz beat Shapovalov in the French Open.
Yeah.
And went there with Adidas, and which was a great trip. And what you could see in that match, and partly, I mean, Alcaraz is you know, specimen monster, whatever you want to call him. He's like one of the kind. But you also saw how his game really destroyed Chapo. You know, he's like he had to hit these high backhand, and he can only loop it in. So there's no pace on the backhand. He just looped it in, and then he just, you know, puts it away.
Yeah,
so it was kind of an obvious.
There have been
display.
several shots where he had to jump to reach the ball, you know, and he'd hit a frame or something.
No, I'm also becoming a little bit more, you know, skeptical about the place. I mean, you see Musetti, you see some guys that do it really well, but it's kind of like a unicorn person, you know. It's like this, you can manage to hit it, but then that's usually the shot that breaks down when you get to matches.
Yeah.
You know, that's the shot you see people breaking down on. It's not the easy one to just keep, like pummeling it like Wawrinka or even Gasquet, who has a probably better one-handed than a forehand.
Yeah,
you know.
fair.
Cool, man. I appreciate your time a lot. I know you're a busy guy with lots happening, lots of editing going on, probably.
Yeah.
What's up for the next Gladiator video? What do we get
I'm
to see?
actually going to be releasing a video about my trip to Israel, where
Oh, wow.
I played a 25K. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And yeah, Jonas, thank you very much for inviting me. It was a great time talking to you and discussing the little things of tennis. Thank you very much.
You have the best of day in Barcelona. Don't waste away in the heat. Wear sunscreen, whatever you need to do. And we keep in touch as always.
Keep in touch, man. Thank you. Bye.